Hello and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nicholas Rosso, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez Ray, on this day before Thanksgiving. Thank you all for joining us.
All right, thank you, and welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. And we're here on a Wednesday this week, obviously, because tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So good evening, fellow patriots across America and around the world. We begin tonight with some horrific news, sadly, on the day before Thanksgiving. I want to take you through an important, sobering, and frankly, unacceptable moment in our nation's capital. If you haven't heard today's shooting in Washington, D.C., that left 2 National Guard troops injured critically while simply performing their duty, this incident is more than a headline. It's not just a criminal act, it's a reflection of a deeper and more dangerous reality unfolding in America today. Tonight, I want to walk you through what this shooting means, why it happened, what it reveals about the state of our society, and what must change. This is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue. But let's be honest, the refusal to address it honestly has become political, and that's part of the problem. The incident and the shock that should have followed when National Guard soldiers, young men and women who have volunteered to serve, are shot in our own capital city, you would think the nation would pause. You would think the media would stop the usual spin cycle long enough to say, hold on, something is seriously wrong here. But the truth is, the reaction to this shooting was muted. Too muted, if you ask me. Let's talk a bit about what this shooting really represents. This was not just an attack on individuals. This was an attack on order, on the rule of law, and on the guardians of our civil society. National Guard troops are not political. They are American citizens serving their country. Most of them barely out of high school or college. To shoot at them is to send a message that criminals do not fear consequences. A city doubled over by failed policy. Washington, D.C. is drowning in policies that reward dysfunction and punish accountability. Soft on crime prosecutors, ideologically driven city councils, and leadership more concerned about optics than safety. Now even National Guard troops are targets. The human side no one wants to talk about behind the headlines are families, mothers, fathers, spouses, who got calls no family should receive. Not from Baghdad, Kabul, or Syria, but from right here in the USA, from Washington, D.C. I don't know about you, Nick, but this story just makes my belly ache. I don't know what it's going to take, to slow this this movement against America down, but we're not heading in a good direction.
No, unfortunately not. And I really think this story should matter for every American because, what happens in a nation's capital spreads throughout the nation. When you're able to touch the heart of a country, everywhere else feels completely overrun, and it is. The nation's capital should be completely untouchable because honestly, lawlessness is contagious. I mean, this shooting is honestly a warning shot because this is our nation's capital. This should be the most secure place in our country, and the fact that it reminds me of that line from Hotel Rwanda, which is like, I think people will look at this and say, oh, that's horrible, and then go on eating their dinners. And that needs to change if we want our country to change.
Yeah. And, The details are coming out slowly, of course, but one of the things that I did hear on one of the reports, or maybe I read it in one of the reports, is that the shooter was an Afghan.
Yeah, and it's an Afghan national. And does that mean they're a student who's a leftist? Does that mean they're a jihadist? It could be anyone these days.
Well,
It's crazy to think about.
a lot of the pundits, the conservative pundits in particular, had been shouting from the rooftop for the last 4 years with the Biden open border invasion, and they said, a lot of bad actors have gotten through our borders and are within our ranks right now, and it's going to take some time to find them, but I got to believe this is one of them. Or like you said, if he's a student, he's here on a student visa. He's radicalized, obviously, and he was activated. Uh, maybe he was sent over on a ruse as a student visa. I don't know. We'll find out. I don't want to speculate on all the details, but the bottom line is that we have people in this country for the sole purpose of creating chaos. I do believe this is not a lone wolf. This is a concerted effort. This guy's part of a network of some sort, and we'll find out hopefully down the line what exactly uh, this guy was about. But you know, I'm not buying this lone wolf stuff because people that are, it's. I'm not saying it's impossible, but people that go after military members, that's that's literally if he was sent here by a foreign government or entity, that's literally an act of war. I don't know what else to call it, but that's the very definition of an act of war. You're attacking our military on our soil, and if we find out that there was a foreign government involved in this, that's literally an act of war. And I'm not I'm not too fond of what may happen to them.
Well, I'm not, no, and we also have to consider, what if this is ideological and this person isn't tied to a group but tied to an ideology like Antifa, anti-fascist ideology. I think this echoes a theme that we've been saying on the show for quite some time now as a bullet point, which is that leadership matters, and when you have weak leadership, this is what's going to happen. Which is why in all sectors of society we want to get rid of our weak leadership and install strong leadership. This is leadership that's going to enforce laws and prosecute criminals, so that these tragedies don't become inevitable.
Well, you just said it. The reason this story matters for every American is that what happens in the capital spreads nationwide. Crimes, spike where criminals feel untouchable. Lawlessness becomes contagious, and the shooting is a warning flare, in my opinion. Uh, so that means that leadership, this is why leadership matters. And leadership has failed when leaders refuse to enforce laws and prosecutors decline to prosecute, and then tragedies become inevitable. So the broader national failure is that this is the result of dangerous justice experiments. Violent felons released early, juveniles walking free after armed robberies, serial offenders cycling through the system. So, what's the path forward? We need truth. We need law enforcement empowerment. We need accountable prosecutors and leadership that defends those who defend us. Mandatory sentencing for violent firearm crimes, real accountability, and restored community policing should be the very minimum that we demand as citizens. So, you know, the message to the National Guard and their families, to the wounded soldiers, we the people honor you. That's our message from the Hispanic Patriot Podcast.
We do.
We do honor you for your service. As a veteran, I applaud you for your service, and don't let some nut job deter you from your patriotic duty that you signed up for when you joined the Guard or you joined one of the other military branches. For your families, we pray for you. To every guardsman standing watch, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So America must decide who we're going to be: order or chaos, courage or complacency. In my opinion, this shooting is a test, and we must demand better for our troops, our communities, and our future. So, thank you for standing for truth, law and order, and America.
Absolutely. And that's why we want to thank every single member of our military that is out there. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. And we hope that no matter where you are, you can have some time with your families, whether it's a video call or being able to sit at the kitchen table tomorrow night. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Yep. God bless our troops. And now, with heavy hearts for today's events in Washington, D.C., let us turn to what we will be celebrating tomorrow: Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, the real story. What is the real story? What are the facts? And why does it still matter in the United States of America? This is a uniquely American holiday. Um, no other country in the world has this. I think they have it in Canada, but I'm not exactly sure. It's not even on the same day. They have a different day that they do their Thanksgiving. But you know, let's step away a little bit from the political battlefields. Not completely, because Thanksgiving itself is rooted in the American story, but enough to take a breath and reconnect with who we are as a people. So, Thanksgiving, it's more than turkey, football, and family gatherings. It's more than sales, travel, or even tradition. Thanksgiving is the single most American holiday we have, born out of hardship, faith, perseverance, and the belief that gratitude must survive even the harshest conditions. Tonight, we want to spend the rest of the show walking through the following: the real history of Thanksgiving, the facts most people don't know, the myths and the truths, why this holiday survived centuries, why gratitude is a revolutionary act, and why Thanksgiving still shapes the American spirit today. So, to understand Thanksgiving, you have to imagine a different world. The year is 1620. The Pilgrims, a small group of English religious dissenters, board a ship called the Mayflower. 102 souls, risking everything for the freedom to live according to their faith. Nearly half of them died during that first brutal winter. The Native Alliance and its importance. Out of that, suffering came an extraordinary encounter with Samoset and Squanto of the Wampanoag people. Squanto taught the Pilgrims how to survive and helped secure a peace treaty with Chief Massasoit that lasted over 50 years. Imagine that back in those days. So the first Thanksgiving of 162, the first Thanksgiving was 3 days of, it was a 3-day harvest celebration attended by 50 pilgrims and 90 Wampanoag warriors. So the natives outnumbered the pilgrims. The menu included venison, duck, goose, seafood, corn, and squash. What was missing from that? Turkey. There was no turkey at the first Thanksgiving. Isn't that interesting? It was a
Very
moment of
much
peace.
so.
Yeah, it was a moment of peace and cooperation between two cultures. So, what are some of the facts that you never hear in school? Nick?
Is that Mike?
What,
You right there? Okay, because
what
the
are
thing
some
is,
of the facts you never hear in school?
well, I think some of the facts that you never hear is the fact that actually we had Thanksgiving as a religious holiday long before this time. We had it in Texas in 1598 and in Virginia 1619 because, as it turns out, the Pilgrims were not the first. Europeans in the Americas. Of course, the Spanish had been there for hundreds of years, but also the Pilgrims were not the first English people to arrive there either. Jamestown had been founded before in Virginia, and this would be the beginning of the North and South culture that we know today. The South actually came before the North, funnily enough.
Yep.
There was no pumpkin pie. That's very
Yeah, I was
unfortunate.
going to say, did you know there was no pumpkin pie?
I try to forget that fact. That's a hate
Imagine.
fact. I call that a hate fact. You know what I mean?
I love
Shout
pumpkin
out to
pie.
my friend Charles Kulob, who invented that term. But also, the Pilgrims didn't call themselves the Pilgrims.
Yep.
They actually had a fun word for themselves. They called themselves the Separatists. Isn't that fun?
Yep.
Um, but also, yeah, as you said, turkey was not the main dish, not at all, because at the time there was simply they hadn't hunted for them yet,
And
and of course, yes,
do
please.
you know, do you know that Thanksgiving wasn't an annual holiday until President Lincoln established it in 1863?
In the
So
middle of the
that's
Civil War too. So if you love Thanksgiving, thank a Republican today.
over 200. Yeah, exactly. You know, how did it become a national holiday? I bet you didn't know that Sarah Josepha Hale campaigned for 17 years to create a national Thanksgiving holiday. President Lincoln, a Republican, finally established it during the Civil War as a day of unity and gratitude. The evolution of the
Thank
holiday,
a Republican today.
yep, the evolution of the holiday from FDR's date change controversy to the Macy's parade and the presidential turkey pardon, which happened yesterday, as a matter of fact. President Trump pardoned the turkey. Uh, and the holiday grew, but its core remained gratitude, family, faith, and community. So, what is the deeper meaning? What do you think the deeper meaning is? We lost you. We lost your sound. The,
That's absolutely terrible. Look at that.
the,
They must not see. They don't want us to know the deeper meaning of Thanksgiving. They
the
don't
deep
want us to
state
know
is
that.
after you, man.
The deep state is after the deep meaning of Christmas. Okay, Christmas, Thanksgiving, the Easter Bunny. The CIA wants to get rid of it all. But no, this is what you guys come here for: is the unhinged conspiracy rants. No,
Yep.
let's get back on track because Thanksgiving is not just a time for you to hear your crazy uncle who's been right about absolutely everything for the last 20 years. It also reinforces other great American values like gratitude, humility, community, and resilience, because
Yep.
literally the entire aspect of this country could have died on the vine, and that's what we have to understand. That Thanksgiving celebrates what's good about America, because
Yep.
I think there's a lot of attempts to politicize America. Really, I don't think anyone was thinking about Democrats or Republicans when they were starving trying to grow their corn. I think it was more about universal human values. And I think that's what Thanksgiving can actually mean for all Americans today.
Yep.
Because Thanksgiving is really the first American holiday that you can embrace very, very easily. For the Hispanic community, it reflects the same pursuit that the Pilgrims had, except just going up north through Texas and California instead of on ships from England. Freedom, opportunity, better futures for your children. I mean, and also the sacrifice, because you could die on any of these voyages. Colonization was hard. People talk about how bad colonization is, but no one talks about how hard it is to actually be a colonist in these kind of worlds. And I do think I want to say this very clearly because it comes to me. I think Native Americans should celebrate Thanksgiving because it's foremost a Christian holiday, and the vast majority of Native Americans are Christians. But it also celebrates not just the Thanksgiving at New England. It celebrates the Thanksgivings of every time there was breaking of bread between the native people and the incoming people of this country. There's a commonality of culture there, and I think that we should not let petty Democratic Party policies mean that we can't be friends, that we can't celebrate together as we did those many years ago. It doesn't matter about the war or anything that happened before, after, or during. It matters, can we have a moment where we come together? Yes, we can. We did. We can again, forever and ever here in America.
Well, bottom line is that Thanksgiving celebrates what is good in America, despite modern attempts to politicize or dismiss it. You know, as you mentioned, what does it mean for all Americans today? You know, you mentioned the part about Hispanic Americans because it reflects the same pursuits that the Pilgrims had. You know, they came for freedom, they came for opportunity and a better future for their children. Guess what? That's why Hispanics come to America, you know, to get away from tyrannical governments and poor economic systems and corruption and all of the things that they wanted to escape. And the good families, thank God that I firmly believe that the majority of the people that come here are good people. Unfortunately, there are some that filter in that aren't so good, but the overwhelming majority are good people that are looking for a better life for their families. And so Hispanics embrace that American spirit, and that's uh, it's something that people don't understand, but also it applies to other cultures as well. You know, people that came here from Eastern Europe and Poland and France and Italy, and the people that came here and embraced the American culture.
I would
While
also say something that a population often forgotten about are the Christian people from the Middle East, because there was hundreds of thousands of Lebanese people and Iraqis who were Christians who
Yep.
left the Ottoman Empire and left all these places. And Carlos Slim, the richest guy in Mexico, is actually descended from these kind of people. But we have a shining city on a hill that all of these people are attracted to, and I dare say it, Hugo. Maybe I'm going a little far here, but I'd say that the commonality of our Christian faith is a really huge part of how we can all live together in our American Republic. I know we have non-Christians and we appreciate them, but I think that having that basis and foundation has really led us to be able to live together.
Yeah, and it's you think about world wars, and I was reading.
Especially
You
if
know,
you're nerds like us, you think about world wars a lot.
well, I was reading. I came across this story because it had to do with how soldiers on opposing fronts uh, basically came together during holidays. And one of the stories that I read was in World War One, with the Allies fighting the Germans across a battlefield. They were all in trenches and all, and how on Christmas Eve they paused the shooting, and soldiers actually came out of their trenches, walked across the barbed wire, shook hands, and enjoyed a moment of peace. Now that sounds awful strange. You say, well, yeah, they they took that moment to do it, but then as soon as that was over, they went back to their trenches and started shooting at each other again.
Well, and
But
that's what we have to remember, actually, is that was more common back in the day when we had Christian unity. There was this feeling that we shouldn't be barbarians about this, and we should see the commonality. I want to recommend a great movie. It's just called Merry Christmas, a 2005 film about this truce. It is a fantastic movie, and it really depicts very well what happened on that day.
yeah, but getting back to the Thanksgiving part, the part about Thanksgiving to me, um, and I see Thanksgiving differently than Christmas, of course. But you know, it is one of my. I would say it's my second favorite holiday because Christmas is my first. But it's still a different type of holiday because what we're doing is we're taking time to give thanks to God for all the blessings, and praying for those who are less fortunate, and who may not have what we have. And sometimes we get carried away with thinking about everything we don't have and forget to give thanks for what we do have. And I think that's the beauty of Thanksgiving, is that we take that time to reflect. We take that time to spend time with family, loved ones, enjoy a feast, and just give honor to God, because that's really what it's all about, is giving that honor and thanks to God for our blessing of living in the greatest nation on the planet. In my opinion, there's just no comparison. I've been around the world. I've been to countries. I've seen how people live, and it's not the same. I'm sorry. Every time I travel overseas and I come home, I thank God for bringing me home, and it's a unique feeling. Um, and some people call that arrogance or American, pride. And yeah, I am proud to be an American, but that doesn't mean I belittle others. It just means that I feel in my heart that we have the best system, that we've been blessed more than other countries. And, that came from the Christian foundation of this country. Sadly, people have taken it to the other extreme, and, God is not happy with us as a nation right now.
No, and would you be if you were a God that blessed us as much as He has? I mean, the mentioning Charles Kolob again, he wrote a great book called Puritan's Empire, and it talks about how it has a thesis that if you look at the Democrat Party and you look at the policies of progressive leftism in today's world, you see what it is a secularized version of the Puritans. What you find out is that people, when they abandon their Christianity, their good side does not stay with them, unfortunately.
Yep. So, God gives us the ability to worship Him. I mean, he gave us free will, okay? But Thanksgiving is a vital component of worship. And it's a way to acknowledge God's actions and who He is. And what He's blessed this nation with is beyond what other nations have been blessed with. Because a lot of nations who were originally, I guess, Christianly foundation, they got away from that, and you saw what happened to them throughout history. And sadly, there are people in this country that want to do the same thing here. They want to take us away, from being grateful and humble. They want to change our perspective. They want to drown our spiritual strength. They don't appreciate our deep relationship with God. In fact, most of those people don't even believe in Him. So it's kind of hard to reason with people who don't have a belief in the Creator. It's I know God calls us to spread the word and to speak the word, but it's really hard when you're dealing with people who just don't have that foundation, and some of them never did have it. Now, some did have it and then got away from it, but the ones that are really radical are the ones that never had it. And I feel sorry for them because they didn't get to experience, that foundation in their life. And so they're kind of floating around in, in, what I would call confusion. And the Bible talks about that, people who are confused, who have been indoctrinated, lied to, and those are the ones that the Bible warns against in the end times. Now, I'm not predicting that we're in the end times. When nobody knows, we're not supposed to know. But
Thank God for that.
yeah, thank God for that. I think God did that by design. He wouldn't want us to know. Uh, and he tells us he's in control, and I believe that. But the biblical purpose of Thanksgiving is important in the Bible as a core aspect of worship because it expresses dependence on God. It's a way to draw near to Him and an antidote to negative feelings like complaining. Lord knows we all complain, right? About this and that. Oh, this didn't work out, or this did. I've been growing more in my faith in the sense that I'm training myself to thank God for everything, whether it's good or bad, because I believe in His plan for my life. And so when I go through trials and tribulations, it's easy to have to fall into a self pity mode and feel like God doesn't care about you, or you know, and the devil plants that seed. So he's the liar, so he's trying to make sure that you think that God doesn't exist or that He doesn't care about you. But it's quite the opposite. So it's important as a nation that we celebrate this holiday in the way that it was meant to be celebrated. Um, it is our unique American way to say thank you, Lord, for what you have given us as a nation, what you have provided to me as an individual, to my family, my loved ones, um, and then try to extend that feeling to others. Um, Even if they're diametrically opposed to us. I try to do that. I'm not the best at it, I will admit, but God knows my heart, and He knows that I do want the best for others who may not have had the upbringing that I had. I was blessed. I feel blessed because I knew God early on, and others out there I feel sorry for because they never got that as a child, and so they're some of the most anti-Christian people that are out there because of that. And it could be, I strongly feel that it's the devil working in them, making them angry, making them rebel against anything that may be good. And so when something good comes along for them, he tries to destroy it and to change them into his image as opposed to the image of God. So Thanksgiving to me, like I said, it's my second favorite holiday. I feel like the day just feels different to me, and I enjoy all the traditional American things, of course, the meal, the football, the family time, and all of that. Those are all part of the holiday. Um, and it's a holiday really meant for families and
Oh
loved
yeah,
ones, and
absolutely.
and it's sad that some people are alone, and I wish that I could reach out and touch someone who is alone, and if I had that opportunity I would take it. There was
I think we all would. No, I mean, and I think I want to say that here is from us at the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. If you don't really have a lot of anybody to be with this Thanksgiving, our heart goes out to you. We want you to feel like you are not alone because you are an American, so you have 350 million family members, who should love you. It's what we should be doing as a society. Um, so I want you all to know that if you're going through any loneliness or sadness this Thanksgiving, don't worry because Hispanic Patriot Podcast is with you.
absolutely, and we want to
Very
share.
meaningful. So,
We want to share, the love that God flows through us because God is love, and so God pours the love through us to give to others who may not be as fortunate. So through
and we want you never to feel left out because those pilgrims didn't feel left out, and neither did the Indians who broke bread with them. It's interesting that Squanto actually was very likely actually a Christian, specifically a Catholic, who had converted from Dominican friars who had freed him from slavery in Spain. But all the native peoples had some concept of God, whether it's Watantonka in the Siouan and Lakota belief. The Aztecs actually had a belief in a one overarching God called the Teotle. And so all of us, no matter who we are, have an understanding that there is a God. There is something out there. In China, they call it Tian. In India, they call it Brahman. It all points to Christ, because Christ is the one, bridge between man and God. But, all of humanity understands that there's something that exists. So never feel alone in that. You're never alone in this world.
So is that, you said in India they call it ramen?
Brahman. I think you're getting confused with that with Japan. In Japan, they understand God as ramen. Well, I mean, not all Japanese. Typically, salarymen and university students see it ramen as the God force. But in India, that's called Brahman.
Well, it just occurred to me because there was a time in my life when I was down and out. People don't know this, but I was actually homeless for about 3 or 4 months.
So never be said that Hugo's not a real one, because he is.
I lived out of my car for about 4 months, and I remember just doing odd jobs, and it was part of my first marriage breakup. I didn't have anywhere to go. I did stay with friends occasionally, but that you couldn't do that permanently. But I remember one of the things, whenever money was scarce, I was lucky enough to have gotten hung on to my car, so I had a place to sleep. But money was scarce, and you would get hungry, so you would go to the restaurants, and if you went around the back, they would give you some of the leftovers when they were closing the restaurant.
Back when they could do that.
Yeah, that was back when they could. And I really don't understand why they can't do that now. Instead, it goes into a dumpster, which is ridiculous.
Because the dumpster can't sue you, Hugo, if it throws up on your food.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. We live in a litigious society, so unfortunately, that way of supporting people who are down and out went out the window.
So, Hugo, do you miss the days when in America sue used to be a woman's name rather than a verb?
Yeah. Run around, Sue.
Now it's run around and sue you and you and you and everybody. But that's not the spirit of Thanksgiving. At the end of the day, we've all been there. And if you haven't been there, then God bless you, and whatever parents or friends or job, corporation, whatever is supporting you, whatever business that you created with your sweat and tears, however you live in life, if you never had to live through that, congratulations. You are not like most people in America, and good for you on that. But most of our audience has been somewhere close to there, and you understand how difficult it can be. So, honestly, I would love to get to a point in America where we see the suffering of fellow Americans as our own family suffering. The first we have to have family help each other again. That's something. Family values need to be restored within the family itself. But maybe when we do that, we can go a level beyond that and see each other as Americans and help each other accordingly. I have to bring up this story, Hugo, because it's very Thanksgiving friendly. A good friend of mine, who I hope we have on the show one day, actually, he's got a tremendous story. My friend, we'll call him Mr. Morgan. He and I were walking in our town, and we came across a Mexican bakery. Don't you love those panisseries? Don't you just love, those Mexican bakeries? And I was talking with the lady who was speaking Spanish with me, and she gave me some pan dulce and some chocolates and some stuff for free. And because we were talking about Mexico and how much, we miss things there. And my friend, Mr. Morgan, we were walking back, and he said, so that lady gave you that stuff just because you were Mexican, and she was too? And I couldn't really I basically, to save time, said, well, yeah, basically. And I'll never forget what he said to me, and I hope we can get there as a country someday. He said, I wish Americans would do that for each other. Can you imagine that, Hugo? If Americans did that for each other, like like we did for each other that day?
Well, yeah, I think that we have some people that do that. I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
we have, there's been times when um, I've come out of a restaurant with leftovers and saw someone on the street, and I'd give them the leftovers. I did that until one time I was driving down Spear. I remember it like it was yesterday, and my wife and I had this habit of putting together what we call little care packages. And in it, we'd put some toiletries in it, some snack bars, some water, just some bare necessity stuff. And so we decided that instead of giving cash to these people that are begging, we would give them something useful. Well, this one time I stopped at the light and the guy came up and my wife handed me one of the bags that we had prepared, and I was preparing to give it to him. And he saw what I was trying to give him, and he kind of like took a step back and he kind of like swiped at it, like, get that out of here. That's not, I want money. And it's like, that kind of soured me a bit, because I thought I was doing a good thing, giving somebody some things that would be useful to them. But the one time that I remember, this is when we used to go downtown for dinner. Now we don't anymore because nobody goes down to town in Denver anymore. It's too damn dangerous. But we had come out of the restaurant, and as usual, and when we had a good meal, there's always leftovers, so you take it home. And I had mine, my wife had hers, and we were with another couple, and they'd had some. And I saw the guy, poor guy on the street, just kind of sitting there down and out. And I just walked up to him and I said, "Here you go, man." And he looked up at me, and I'll never forget that look. It was like he was really grateful. You know, I gave him some good food to eat for that moment. And so it felt good. And that's how we came up with the idea about the bags. But those are American things. I mean, Americans are compassionate. We are the most compassionate society on the planet. There is no
True.
there is no more charitable population than the United States of America. That's a fact. We give to foundations, we give to organizations that we feel are doing good work. I personally give to about three or four that are near and dear to my heart. You can't give to everybody, but you pick the things that you feel you want to support. So yeah, I mean that type of camaraderie, so to speak, and uh, yeah, she gave it to you because you were a fellow Mexican. So what? That doesn't mean that she might have not given it to a white person or to someone else that was in need. So it's you know
But to get to
we
that, what we meant is to get to that level where we see each other. You see this in Japan, for example, very much so. You see this in countries that have a high level of trust and a high level of security. And frankly, we've talked about this before on the show that we have enemies across this world that don't want to see Americans get along, want to divide us by race and religion and culture. And
yeah
while we're different along those lines, and we should embrace those differences within ourselves and in each other, we should also make sure that we recognize that sometimes our problems with each other are much more manufactured than we realize. That there's an ominous they who don't
yeah
want us to be together and working together. And I think that's more of what we want to be fighting, because we do naturally have that camaraderie and that community here in America. We just have to have we got to stop having reasons and excuses to switch it off. We got to switch it on, but we got to make, like for your situation when you were with those homeless guys, giving them help and everything. That person was not seeing far enough to say, if this guy's giving me this here, I don't have to spend money on that. So when I do inevitably get money, I could spend it on something that will get me out of this homeless situation. But that requires a long term thinking
yeah
that usually if you're homeless, you've reached that point, you either don't have, or it's been beaten out of you, or something like that. Or if they might have just been selfish, they're like, oh, why aren't you giving me money? So that's what we have to also remember is that correcting our fellow Americans can be just as charitable as helping them if that's what they need. Let's think about giving people what they need this Thanksgiving. Because
Yeah.
Hugo, throughout my life, I gotta ask you, have you noticed that politicians, a lot of people have always been promising you stuff that you really don't need, that's gonna cost a lot of money and destroy the country?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's not do that this Thanksgiving.
That's the thing, that as we're entering this new political cycle, and I don't want to go off in a tangent of politics because I want to stay on the theme of Thanksgiving. So, what is a call to true gratitude? Gratitude isn't passive, right? It requires reflection. Um, it reminds us that freedom has a cost, that sacrifice matters, and blessings are often born from hardship. Um, Sometimes we don't see the blessing, but God, if you believe God is in control, then He's given you that hardship for a reason. And it's up to you, to us, to discern what it means. And if you pray about it, God will reveal it to you. It may not be the answer you want. It may not be an immediate answer, but I like the song by Garth Brooks. It says some of God's greatest blessings are unanswered prayers. People say, "Well, I prayed for this, I prayed for that, and God didn't give it to me." Well, God isn't your servant. God is there to give you. He's like a fatherly figure. He is a fatherly figure. He gives his children what they need, not necessarily what they want. And so, and I can reflect on my life. I'm 76 years old, for God's sake. And the more I reflect on some of the things that have happened in my life when I was in dire straits for one reason or another, and I prayed hard and, got on my knees and cried and prayed, and God didn't give me what I asked for. He gave me what I needed, but I couldn't see that at the moment. It took years for me to look back and see, oh, that's why God did that. Okay.
And once you recognize that, honestly, it should be said, life gets immeasurably easier when you recognize that, to say, I want my life to be what God wants. So, like, I think people have a misunderstanding that free will, like our free will, means God isn't omnipotent. It means like, well, okay, if God exists, then shouldn't he be able to control everything? It's like, well, I mean, it's like being a good father. A good father doesn't control everything. They try to allow their children to grow up in such a way where they can actually reconnect with
There's nothing worse than a helicopter parent.
Exactly. And you know what's worse? A helicopter God. I mean, that would be, if you had a God managing every single little bit of your life, then you would be immeasurably unhappy, but you would be like, but nothing would go wrong in life. That would be very hellish, honestly. So honestly, like the difficult parts of our life, the fact that we have to fight evil, people see this as a detriment. I don't think it is. I don't think there is a problem that evil exists. I think with everything in the universe you create, there comes something that people can manipulate, that something can be manipulated with. And I think the story of our universe in fighting evil on that personal, spiritual, and universal mythological level, I think that's a cool part of living. And I wouldn't want to live in a universe that doesn't have the fight against evil. Yes, it has defeat, it has sorrow, it has difficulties, but God himself experienced that when he became Jesus Christ on the cross. God literally knows exactly how we feel. He knew it before, but he also experienced it. So, and to be honest, most of us aren't getting nailed to crosses every day, not physically. So honestly, God went through a life that most of us will never go through, will never have as bad an end to. So we have to be grateful. We have to be thankful. And I think that's what Thanksgiving shows us, is we have to be thankful no matter what the situation is. Because when were the Pilgrims thankful, Hugo? When they were starving.
Yeah. You see that you don't. You see, it's hard to do it in the moment, because as you're going through the trial or the tribulation, you're not thinking straight. Your emotions are in control rather than you, like the saying goes, let go, let God. You have to learn to let go at the right time, and
Yes.
then let God. What that means is you release the control to God, and then God will guide you through it. But He will guide you through it in His way, not necessarily your way.
But that's what peace is. Peace is letting go. It's letting go of hatred. It's letting go of war. It's letting go of evil. That's what peace really is when you're able to let go. That's when your veins unblock. You have the circulation. It's when your mind is clear. That's when peace is. And usually you find peace when you understand that everything in life is perfect just the way it is and the way that you and your good Christian brothers are going to make it.
Yep, absolutely. And we're coming to the end of our show, but we're coming into Thanksgiving tomorrow, and we just want to extend our grateful uh, spirit to all those who have been watching the show.
Oh, yes.
Help us to spread that knowledge, and hopefully next Thanksgiving, if God grants us the blessing to be here, then we'll be wiser, and hopefully we'll have a much larger audience if that's God's will. Because that's all I say is, not my will be done, but let God's will be done. And if He directs us to do certain things, then that's what we want to do. Um, and we wanted to make this show special in the sense that we wanted to leave you with those thoughts about Thanksgiving. And the the thing about freedom and sacrifice and all the blessings is it helps us to pause for a moment and say and think to ourselves, what should we be thankful for? So let us give you a few items that we can impart to you. Number one, let's be thankful for family, right? Because family, it's always God, family, work, friends, so forth. At least that's my hierarchy. But God's always at the top, right? And then comes family. After family comes health, because without health, you got nothing. Um,
Take care of
then,
yourself, Hispanic Patriots.
yep. And then after health, we have freedom. You know, if we take freedom for granted in the United States, there are many people around the world that are not free. They don't have the freedom we have. So we should be very thankful and grateful for freedom. We should be thankful for opportunity. This is the land of opportunity, right? This is what we call America, the land of opportunity.
And if it's not, we're going to have to make it again.
No, it still is. It's just, it needs to be brought back to the forefront.
There it is.
Um,
And what else needs to be brought back to the forefront, Hugo?
Faith.
Yes.
Because without faith, what does it say? The Bible says, without faith, the people perish.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's true.
And we don't want the people of the great United States to perish.
No.
We want a great future for this nation. I firmly believe in my heart that we can bring this nation back to those times when God blessed us. And He blessed us because we were humble, because we were putting Him first above everything else. And we have to have that trust. So, reflecting back on the history, we want to be thankful for the Pilgrims because they came over here and started the whole thing. We want to be thankful for those Wampanoag people who greeted them as friends. They didn't fight. They communicated.
And that's
they
exactly what we can do today.
they learned how to learn about each other and get along. And then President Lincoln, who came along, and for every
Establish this great holiday.
and for every generation that preserved America's promise. You know, Thanksgiving is not just tradition; it is an American identity as well as a tradition, and something we pray never dies in this beautiful country that we call home.
Amen.
So, from the Hispanic Patriot Podcast to your home, happy Thanksgiving, and may it be a blessed and meaningful day. And we want to leave you with this prayer of thanksgiving that I came across that I think is well worth sharing. Let's listen to it as we close out the show. Hopefully, it'll touch you the way that it touched me. And here it is. It says, Father in heaven, creator of all and source of all goodness and love, please look kindly upon us and receive our heartfelt gratitude in this time of giving thanks. Thank you for all the graces and blessings you have bestowed upon us, spiritual and temporal, our faith and religious heritage, our food and shelter, our health, the loves we have for one another, and friends or family. Dear Father, in your infinite generosity, please grant us continued graces and blessings throughout the coming year. This we ask in the name of Jesus, your Son. Amen.
Amen.
And
That's
that,
beautiful.
my dear friends and Hispanic patriots out there, we hope that we've imparted a few new trivia tidbits to you tonight. We hope you learned something about Thanksgiving that you didn't already know.
And we hope you feel closer to your fellow Americans and your family and everyone you love this Thanksgiving.
Let me throw out a challenge to you. Go out and find a Democrat and shake his hand tomorrow and say, God bless you. I love you because you're an American. Well, let's hope we can start moving towards being Americans first and then Republicans and Democrats.
Extra points if it's a member of your family, especially one you haven't talked to. Because what do they say, Hugo? A house divided cannot stand. So make sure your house is well united this Thanksgiving. Thanks to you.
Please don't talk politics at your dinner table tomorrow.
There's literally no reason for it. As someone who has worked in politics for 14 years, that's a golden rule. Because gosh darn it, after November 4th, 6th, whatever, however many days, the recounts a week later, we don't want to hear about politics anymore. Let's talk of turkey instead.
And I'm putting out a pledge tonight, beginning at the strike of midnight tonight, and for a period of 72 hours, I am taking a moratorium from politics and from social media in regards to politics. I may post some good things, but it won't be political.
There we go.
So I encourage everyone to try that. I just saw a story today that said, or a study, I think it was, that said that young people, they did a group of young people who stayed off social media for 1 week. And at the end of that week, they were happier than they had been in a long time.
See, all you have to do to be happy, folks, is to be with people you actually care about and not look at always something that makes you upset every day.
Yep.
And there's no reason to be upset this Thanksgiving with the Hispanic Patriots.
Absolutely. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We love you. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much turkey. Or
eat as much turkey as you want. Don't listen to him. God bless America. God bless Colorado. And happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, guys. We love you. We'll see you next week.